Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, beloved. I want to welcome you once more again to Easton's presentations on this Sabbath day. We are continuing with our prophets studies, and I thought that it's very important that we should really thrash on these prophetic studies so that we may know where we are in the stream of time. So we are carrying on with the look at the premises. Last time we ended at the premise number 9. So today we are going to carry on from premise number 10. And that's where we want to look at the things that are found in the prophetic outline of Daniel chapter 11 to Daniel chapter 12, verse 18. And look at the laws that will guide us in our understanding and interpretation of that prophecy. So today we're carrying on with things we need to know about Daniel 12 timelines. We read from the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verse 9. It reads thus: "The thing that has been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new?" No, there's nothing. It has been already of old time, which was before us. So there is nothing new under the sun. What we are experiencing today has been experienced in the past by our ancestors, by those before us. So there is nothing new under the sun. Even the technology that we are talking about, there is nothing new under the sun. The antediluvian people were involved in exactly the same things that we are involved with today. The hybridization, all these things, when men sought to change Yahweh's creation, it's not a new thing, beloved. It's not a new thing. It has been done. It has been there. So when you look at the book of Daniel, just like many other prophecies, it is not linear as from R to Z, right? Or as you look at the prophecies, you say from Daniel chapter 2 to Daniel chapter 12, then you say that's a linear outline. No, what you see is the subsequent prophecy that follows. You still see the same things that were in the previous prophetic outline. But the only thing that is changing from Daniel 2 to 7 is that there is more detail. And from 7 to 8, there is also more detail. And from 8 to 11, 12, there is more added detail. And as you progress towards the end of the time, of course, new events happen, but you will see that the kingdoms that are being involved here are the same kingdoms with added aspects to those kingdoms. And what comes out very clear is that we see a repetition of the timelines, right? The timelines in Papal Supremacy 1 are also seen in Papal Supremacy 2. Though their application now in Papal Supremacy 2, they are no longer days of years or years of days, if you like. They are now literal timelines. And the other thing that we notice as well is that the spirit of certain kingdoms comes back again, like we see Babylon, right? That the spirit of the ancient Babylon comes to play in the modern day Babylon. So you will see also that the spirit of these kingdoms tends to play out in a cyclical pattern. The persecution timeline of 1260 years of days is there in the ancient times and found in the first papal supremacy, is found in the modern times in the second papal supremacy. As there was ancient Babylon, second papal supremacy is referred to as modern day spiritual Babylon, because the same spirit that actuated ancient Babylon is the same spirit actuating modern day Babylon, which is Rome. I mentioned last time that Europe and the United States are the surviving remnants of the ancient pagan Roman Empire. In other words, what we are saying is, in these countries, in these, if you like, kingdoms, or in these empires, European Empire and the United States Empire, if you like to call them that, you will find that these are the very, very constituencies of what made up pagan Rome, right? They do. So there is no distinction between these nations and Catholicism. Whilst Catholicism is essentially the bishops of Rome, who later on succeeded the Caesars, these nations are pagan Rome. And pagan Rome is still alive today to do the bidding of Papal Rome. As it was then in the past, so is it now, today. So you will find that Europe and the United States of America are the powers that will empower modern day papal supremacy number 2, as it was also empowered in the past by the divisions or by the Roman Empire, pagan Rome. The timelines in Daniel chapter 12 are literal. We don't want to spiritualize the scriptures so much that we take them out of their meaning and context. Right? Where the scriptures give us a context of literal reckoning, then we apply the literal reckoning. Where prophecy is found or couched in symbolism, then that timeline will be of necessity reckoned as symbolic. Premise number 10. The 1,260 days and the 1,290, these two timelines. We would want to refer to the board quite often. So the timeline 1,260, right, and the 1,290 days both refer to papal supremacy number 2 in its persecution, or in its persecuting period, right? So A represents the persecution time that Rome, or papal supremacy number 2, is going to be engaged in, or is going to be involved with, right? And then B, its establishment. So B, 1,290 days of papal supremacy number 2, that's when its establishment is in force, or rather it is there as a power, right? Papal supremacy number 2 will be there as a power in the 1,290 days until it is destroyed at the second coming of Yahusha, right there at the end. Daniel chapter 12 verse 7 says, "And I heard the man dressed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, and he held up his right hand and his left hand to the heavens, and swore by him who lives forever, that it should be for a time, times and half a time. And when they have ended scattering the power of the set apart people, then all these shall be completed." And 11 says, "And from the time that which is continual is taken away," that is the pagan Rome, right? Which is continual, the power, the government, that is continual, right? Is taken away. And the abomination that lays west, right? The abomination that lays west is set up is a 1,290. So Papa Rome cannot persecute unless and until it is established as a power. So it therefore means that these two timelines will of necessity start at the same time. As it is established and given authority, so as it now the power to be able to persecute. So Papa Rome cannot persecute unless and until it is established to reign. Revelation 13 verse 3-7, it says, all the world wondered after the beast. And then 7 says, over all kindreds and tongues and nations. It has got power and authority over all kindreds and tongues and nations. You can't doubt that. That's what Scripture is saying. And we can see it. It's there. The most respected man, the most adored man on earth is the Pope of Rome. He has got more, or probably billions of people who give allegiance to him, who honor him, right? So he is quite popular. And Scripture says all the world wondered after the beast. In other words, all the world would follow the beast, except those who are Yahusha's people. And Revelation 13, 16, and 17 says, he will force everyone to receive a mark, right? So that the beast system, or papal supremacy number 2, will force everyone on the earth, right, to obey a worldwide Sunday law, rather even other laws of worship. They will have to bring up laws that govern worship, not just the Sunday and the Sabbath laws, but there will be other laws. In fact, they are there, other laws that will be put in place to control, govern, and force worship to the inhabitants of the earth. So, in other words, when that time comes, civil and religious liberties are taken away. That is when the daily is taken away. When the government of the day is taken away, and all power and authority is given to the popes, right, or to the Papa Supremacy number 2, then the daily or the government cannot decree anything outside what Papa Rome Supremacy number 2 has decreed. In other words, all the governments of the earth, they will be under the authority of Papa Supremacy number 2. And we can't doubt that. Every leader, every president, every prime minister, apparently nearly, okay, there might be 1 or 2 who have not gone to the Pope when they are inaugurated, but all kings of the earth, once they are inaugurated, they all go to Vatican. They all go to meet the Pope, I guess to be given their mandates, I guess to be given the Pope must give them the directives of how they will go about with their work. In other words, the instructions of having to come and align in the world order that the Pope wants must be given directly to the leader of that particular time in that particular country. So ultimately we realize the one who has got authority is not the president or the prime minister of that country, but is the one to whom he goes, right, to be given his marching orders. So Daniel chapter 12 verse 11 says, and from the time that the daily shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Note, it is when the secular power or the scepter of power and the seat and authority of governments is taken away from the kings of the earth and placed in the hand of the papal king, that the daily is taken away, in order to set up the abomination that maketh desolate. That is the papacy that persecutes, that is the papacy that destroys. So when you say the abomination that maketh desolate, it is an idolatrous power that destroys, right? Like Scripture says, he destroys, right, with his teeth and his feet, and crushes everything in its way. That's exactly what pagan Rome did. That's exactly what Papa Rome does. So it's not a new thing. There's nothing new under the sun. Premise number 11. The 30-day difference between 1260 and 1290, which is this difference, right? This 30-day difference, right, is explained in Revelation chapter 17 and 18. Now, let's go to Revelation 17 and 18. By the way, Daniel and Revelation are interlocking and they are explaining each other. We saw last time that Revelation 13 is explained by Daniel chapter 11. So you can't deal with one book and hope to get a full understanding of what the prophecy is saying in that particular book. But you have to combine both books in order to come up with the full picture of the prophetic drama that will be outplaying itself in these last days. So in Revelation 17 verse 12, it states that 10 kings receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So there is a time, right, when 10 kings receive power, right, with the beast in 1 hour. Right? And Revelation 17:12, it reads like this. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet. By the time the prophet was given, these kings had not received the kingdom as yet. By the time of that time of this prophecy, but they received power as kings 1 hour with the beast. In other words, there is a coming together with these 10 worldwide kings with the Pope to make a confederacy, to plan on how the world must come under the subservience of the Papal Supremacy number 2. And so Scripture says 1 hour, they come to power 1 hour together with the beast. So there's a timeline at some point, right, when they will come, that is at the end of the 1260 days of persecution. Then those 10 kings will come together with the papal system and they will rise to power. Right? This is the pinnacle of their rise. The climax of their rise is here. Revelation 18:10 says, standing afar off, this is the destruction of Babylon. Revelation 18 talks about the destruction of Babylon. Standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. So the judgment of Babylon comes in 1 hour, right? It comes in 1 hour. The rise to reign of the 10 kings in Babylon is also done in 1 hour, right? Which is that rise, and then the fall will also take place in 1 hour. 1 hour fall of Babylon, and that will be taking place in the last plague. We shall read all that. For in 1 hour, verse 17, 18 verse 17, Revelation 18:17 says, for in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. So so this is the time when everything is destroyed on earth, right? All the monies, all the magnificent buildings, all the chariots, all the ships at sea, all the merchants' businesses, in that 1 hour, everything comes to naught. And every shipmaster and all the companying ships and sailors and as many as trade by sea stood afar off. And Revelation 19 says, and they cast dust on their heads and they cried, weeping and wailing, saying, alas, alas, that great city wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness, for in 1 hour is she made desolate. Right? So she comes out to be the abomination that maketh desolate, right? But Yahweh is preparing for that power, for that system, right? so that he will make it desolate also in 1 hour. Right. So the term for in 1 hour is that is referring to Babylon, judgment come, which means it's going to take an hour from the top, from the climax, to go to the bottom at the second coming of Yahushua. These two periods of 1 hour are not indefinite, but a very specific 1 hour of symbolic time. So you can see these times, the 1 hour periods in Revelation, are couched in prophetic symbolism of 10 horns, the beast and the spiritual Babylon. Of course, this end time Babylon is not the ancient Babylon. Therefore, it can only be a spiritual Babylon. One concludes that these 1 hour, these two 1 hour periods are symbolic times. Therefore, if they are to correspond to the final timelines of Daniel chapter 12, verses 5 to 13, which are literal times, right? These are literal times, right? If they are to correspond to these literal times, they must be converted to literal time by the day-year principle we get in the book of Numbers 14 verse 34. What does Numbers 14 verse 34 say? We've read that before, but for the sake of your remembrance, I'll read it again. After, it says, after the number of the days in which ye searched the land, even 40 days, each day for a year shall ye be your iniquities, even 40 years, and shall ye bear your iniquities, even 40 years, and ye shall know my breach of promise. So, because they have done this breach on the promise of Yahweh, Yahweh says, you have come with a bad report so that you can discourage my people. And Yahweh says, because of you went there for 40 days to spy the land, now I am going to give you each day for a year, so that it may come to your remembrance that we do not breach the promises of Yahweh. And Ezekiel 4, verse 5 and 6 says, Ezekiel 4, 5 and 6 says, for I have laid upon thee the years of their iniquity, according to the number of the days, 390 days, so shalt thou bear the iniquity of the house of Yashua. Right? And when thou hast accomplished them, lie again on their right side, on thy right side, and thou shalt bear the iniquity of the house of Yehuda 40 days. I have appointed thee each day for a year. So it is Yahweh's way of doing things. That when we are dealing with time, prophetic times, right? When we are dealing with the prophetic times, the rule is that we convert the literal times into years. That's clear. It's a scriptural principle. These 1 hour timelines must be converted to literal time by day-year principle. Since one symbolic day equals one scriptural year, then 1 hour symbolic time is equal to 15 days. So some might ask, how do you get that? It's equal to 15 days. So how many hours are there in a scriptural day? It's 24 hours. 12 hours day, 12 hours night, right? So you've got 24 hours. So you've got 1 hour, which is over 24, right? And how many days does a scriptural year have? It has got 360 days, not 365 days. You count. A lot of things have happened, right? Like for instance, the sun was stopped, right? When the sun was stopped, the Masoreth continued, right? So the sun and the Masoreth must continue to move in harmony, in uniform, to begin the year and the Tekufa, right? So because the sun was stopped, the Masoreth continued. And because also the dial was turned 4 degrees backwards during the time of Hezekiah, then also what that does is to affect the movement of the sun vis-a-vis the Masoreth. So when that movement has been disturbed, it therefore required the sun to make more runs than it used to make. so that it can be at the same position to start the year at the Tekufa with the Mazarak. So we don't count the 365 days. No, we don't. They are not scriptural. They defy the cyclical pattern of Yahweh's creation. A cycle cannot have more than 360 degrees. No. And so therefore, when you work out prophetic timelines, we always work out with 360. So you say this multiplied by 360. Right? This is over 1. Old mathematics, right? So I can do a long division for you if you are not quick with figures. So what number goes into there and there? That's 6. 6 goes into here 4 times. 6 goes here into 60 times. So you ask 4. 4 here, you say 1. 4 here, 1. Remainder 2 into 25. So 1 hour is equal to 15 days. Right? That's how we come to 15 days. Right? So it therefore means that there is 15 days to rise to authority or to reign. The 10 kings of the earth will reign with the papacy. Because the kings are they that give papal supremacy, number 2, military power. Right? So when they're reigning together, it requires that, or rather it means that the Pope is being given his authority, is being given his power by the kings of the earth. For 15 days they rise to power. Yeah. So you are going to see that when they start here, that is the universal death decree is legislated, right, by the 10 kings. Because it is the duty of the 10 kings to legislate what the Pope wants. It is the duty of the kings of the earth to legislate the Roman policy. Like you are seeing right now. The whole world is ruled by Roman policy. The United States, right now as we speak, its policies are guided by the group Heritage, a group of Jesuits, who have formulated Project 2025, a policy which comes straight from Catholicism to run the United States as it is being run today. So when they come to legislate the universal death decree here, when they rise together to power, they will then say, we are going to decree that on this date, after the 15 days, right, they are going to effect their universal death decree punishments. In other words, that's when everyone who doesn't comply must be brought to book. So that's the 1 hour of the rise of those. So you see, like I was saying, you see that this is 1 hour 15 days, this is 1 hour 15 days. And the total of those 15 days will be these 30 days. So 15 here will total to 30 days difference between 1,260 and 1,290 days of papal supremacy or papal establishment. 1,260 days of persecution. The difference between these two timelines will be these 30 days, will be 15 and 15. So you see that scripture is very logical, right? When you put things correctly together, they then start to make sense. So the two 1 hour periods of Revelation 17 and 18 correspond to the 30 days difference between those two timelines, 1,260 days and 1,290 days of Daniel chapter 12 verses 5 to 13 final timeline. This is relevant to the final confrontation and the deliverance of Yahweh's people. So once the day-year principle is applied in explaining time